You're looking at another live shot of Tel Aviv. It is 3 a.m. there, and in just the last little while, Iranian state media reporting blasts were heard in Tehran. Comes after loud explosions were heard in Tel Aviv and in nearby Jerusalem, and that's just an hour ago. The latest strikes are a part of the response from Tehran after Israel launched a blistering series of strikes at Iranian targets. Iran's supreme leader saying that Israel's action, quote, initiated a war. The Ayatollah is vowing to inflict heavy blows. Many Iranian missiles have been intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome, and the U.S. says that it helped shoot down some. Some missiles did make it through, and dozens of people are reported injured. Iran has also reported incoming fire from Israel in the hours since it began its response. Hello, welcome back to Hanomansing Tonight. I'm Sarah Galashan. The Israeli Prime Minister has spoken in the wake of Iran's response. Benjamin Netanyahu directly addressing the Iranian people.
The objective of Israel's military operation is to remove this threat, both the nuclear threat and the ballistic missile threat to Israel. And as we achieve our objectives, we're also clearing the path for you to achieve your objective, which is freedom. And the time has come for you to unite around your flag and your historic legacy by standing up for your freedom from an evil and oppressive regime. It has never been weaker.
For more, I'm now joined by CBC's Crystal Goomansingh in Jerusalem. Crystal, it's very late where you are right now, but we have recently seen fresh strikes from Iran against Israel. What's the latest on the ground? What has Israel been saying?
Well, Sarah, it was probably about an hour ago that we had the last alerts blaring, warning people to take shelter. And from where we are in Jerusalem, we've been able to witness many interceptors being launched in an attempt to down some of those missiles heading from Iran. Most of those strikes appearing to be heading towards and debris falling in the Tel Aviv metropolitan area. That is an area that has seen a lot of debris fall, but also, as you had just said, some of those missiles did get through the different air defense systems that Israel has in order to protect itself. There have been reports of injuries on the ground. The reports right now are still, sort of in a fluid situation, anywhere from 60 down to 30-ish. EMS services for Israel are saying that they are dealing with about 34 injured people that they have seen. Some of those lightly injured. They obviously are varying degrees, but there was one building in particular that was heavily damaged, and officials on the ground there are saying that they were searching the rubble for individuals trapped inside. And the danger here, not only from missiles that are getting through the air defense systems, but also from falling debris. And that is why Israeli officials have been repeatedly telling people here to heed those warnings, to seek shelter, and to not leave shelters until the all clear has been given, telling people that it is in fact okay to come out. So it really is a tense situation that continues. People, for the most part, are paying attention and going into those shelters when they're being told to seek shelter. There is still a state of emergency in effect here.
Crystal, what has Iran been saying since it started retaliating with strikes?
Well, the retaliations really started early Friday afternoon when a series, about 100 drones were sent towards Israel. That, according to Israeli officials, those were almost all shot down before even entering Israel. That we know that fighter jets were scrambled in order to take those down earlier in the day. Iranian officials have outright said that there would be severe retaliation, that they would not hold back following what Israeli officials have called a historic attack on Iran, hitting military bases, hitting the nuclear facility, the main enrichment nuclear facility in Natanz in the center of Iran. So we were anticipating a very strong response response. People were told that this could last for many days, and that is why officials here in Israel have been, really stressing those warnings for people to take cover. Again, Israel does have very robust air defense systems, several air defense systems, but as we've seen tonight, not all of those missiles are always shot down. And then, of course, that falling debris can be incredibly dangerous. So from Iranian officials, it was a pledge to continue to retaliate. Retaliation expected to come in waves, and even just tonight, there have been 3 different waves of attacks that have rolled in.
Now, this may be my next question here. You're in Jerusalem. You were there when Iran first started with its retaliation. Talk to us about what that was like. Walk us through what it was like for you and what the mood has been like in Jerusalem where you are.
Well, to start off, it's very disorienting because you have those alarms that blare, not only the community alarms that sound, but mobile devices will issue loud alerts, very similar to sort of the National Warning Service alerts that Canadians will be used to hearing if there's an incident that they need to be aware of. So you instantly are shocked into a sort of action, and sometimes, a bit of a freeze situation. We were able to witness, my cameraman Mark Demore and I, a lot of interceptions, even just from the position that I'm at right now. And it is quite a sight to see that you still hear the loud thunder. You watch the, intercepted missiles rising up, the explosions in the air, and then watching all of that debris falling. And then, of course, people. There's a lot of people who will go out onto the streets. It is Shabbat right now, so it is a little bit quieter than it might be on your average, early Saturday morning. And that also is playing into another fear here that there is an issue around security, because a lot of people who are observing Shabbat, they wouldn't be on their devices, they wouldn't be paying attention. And so the Israeli chief rabbi actually said earlier in the day that, if people weren't able to be in an area where they have loud community alarms, that they could or should leave their phones just on silent, so that when those mobile alerts do go off, they would be alerted. And if someone does call them, if they think and they know it's an emergency, they could answer it. So it is a very tense situation. People were told to prepare for it, and they're being told to prepare to deal with this sort of situation, this intensity, for potentially many days, as we heard Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu earlier tonight say that, in fact, this was a historic operation, and we know that Israeli defense officials have also said this is just the beginning.
CBC's Crystal Goomansingh in Jerusalem. Thank you. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump is urging Iran to make a deal on its nuclear program before more strikes come from Israel. Sasha Petricic has been following the American reaction for us from Washington. Sasha, so what else are we hearing from the Trump administration?
Well, the United States was initially pretty cautious, distancing itself from Israel's operation when we first heard about it yesterday. But this morning, President Donald Trump called the military campaign excellent. He was posting, he was calling newspapers and networks here, boasting that that Israel was actually using great American equipment, as he put it. So taking some credit for whatever success he perceived there. He says he was told all about the attack, that he was kept in the loop, that he spoke to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, and he was set to talk to him again today. Trump earlier today met with his own national security team in the Situation Room. They were going over all of the different elements of this conflict. This is, for instance, what the U.S. representative at the UN had to say today, as we heard very little from the administration officially, but of course, lots of little statements that suggested where the United States was, or how the United States was looking at all of this.
Israel advised us this action was necessary for its self-defense. Every sovereign nation has the right to defend itself, and Israel is no exception. The United States was informed of the strikes ahead of time, but was not militarily involved in these strikes. Our absolute foremost priority is the protection of U.S. citizens, personnel, and forces in the region.
So that, in a nutshell, is the U.S. position. Washington tries to stay away from the offensive part of this operation, instead focusing on the need to help Israel defend itself. It certainly could have been more involved in all of this, all of the attacks on Iran. It has 2 aircraft carriers in the region. It has more than 40,000 troops all over the place, but it obviously chose not to. Sarah?
Sasha, the U.S. is often, taking a lead in terms of peace efforts in the region. So how does all of this impact that?
Well, you're right. For months, the U.S. has been holding Israel back from launching exactly this kind of attack, saying that it wanted to come up with a diplomatic deal that would see Iran give up its nuclear program voluntarily and potentially lay the groundwork for a more peaceful situation where the rest of the region wouldn't have to worry about some of Iran's proxies, for instance, Hezbollah or Hamas, some of these other groups that have sometimes been as violent as Iran itself has. Yesterday, either the U.S. gave Israel the green light to go ahead with this, or Israel took the opportunity. And today, interestingly, Trump was almost presenting this as part of the plan to put more pressure on Tehran to agree to this deal that he and the U.S. administration have been pushing for. Or as he posted on social media, this is the time to make all of this come to an end. Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left. In any case, it looks like that diplomatic effort has not been going particularly well. It looks like all of this may well have derailed it, because while there were talks planned for Sunday in Oman, Iran's now saying that it's not interested in talking while it's under attack. Sarah?
Sasha Petricic in Washington.
My pleasure.
Okay, my next guest is a former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Public Affairs. P.J. Crowley is the author of Red Line, American Foreign Policy in a Time of Fractured Politics and Failing States. And he joins us now from Alexandria, Virginia. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Sarah.
So not really a surprise. Iran, after the attacks from Israel, Iran had said it was going to fight back. That is what we have seen happen here. Talking to our reporter who's on the ground in Jerusalem, she's describing it as sort of 3 waves of retaliation that we've seen so far from Iran. What are your thoughts about how this is escalating?
Well, that's the great risk. You've had the initial Israeli strikes, you've had the Iranian response. The questions that have no answers at this point are, how far is Israel going to go in its offensive? And what can Iran do in retaliation? One of the more significant aspects of this is that Iran's regional strength has been very much degraded in recent months. So it doesn't have the strong proxy in Lebanon, in Hezbollah. It doesn't have a supportive government in Syria. So we'll have to see what the extent of the Iranian response is over time.
Now, the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, almost immediately distancing the United States, saying that Israel took this as, quote, unilateral action against Iran. What position does that leave the United States in right now?
Well, I think it was a remarkable statement. And I think it's the yin and yang of the Trump administration policy. The president, both in his first term and in his second term, has made clear he does not want to see the United States drawn into another major conflict in the Middle East. That's one instinct. The other instinct is he sees himself as a deal maker. So in his offer to Iran, he's saying, let's get back to the negotiating table. Obviously, something that is implausible given the Israeli action.
Well, and Iran saying that it won't. I mean, that does not suggest a deal is in the works.
Well, no. In fact, the negotiation had kind of reached an impasse because the Trump administration was confronting the same thing that the Obama administration confronted. Iran is not going to negotiate away a civilian nuclear program. So it was unclear where Trump was going to go with this anyway. And now clearly, as you say, rightly, Iran is not going to negotiate under duress.
So Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, saying that the United States did not have anything to do with this. Israel acted on its own. Donald Trump, though, at the same time, has also mentioned that he knew these attacks from Israel were going to come. So what kind of message does that send to Iran if you are, in fact, trying to get Iran to the table to negotiate?
I think the Trump administration is trying to thread a needle by saying, we're not involved in the strikes directly on you, Iran. Clearly from a domestic political standpoint, the Trump administration is saying that we're going to help Israel defend itself. So it's trying to play, both sides of this equation. President Trump is an improviser, and so I think he's going to read and react, to this conflict day by day. I'm not sure you're going to see a coherent policy emerge right away. They're trying to see what's going to happen and then find ways to react to that in a way that supports their position.
You talk about sort of playing both sides to an extent here, and I kind of worry or wonder where that leads the United States. Do you see a conflict escalating to a point where the United States becomes somehow more involved?
That again depends on Iran. As long as this is primarily a conflict, a shooting war between Israel and Iran, I think the United States is going to remain in this kind of quasi-passive position that it currently has. On the other hand, if U.S. forces are attacked, the Trump administration's calculations and policies and actions could quickly change.
P.J. Crowley, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State, he's joining us today from Alexandria, Virginia. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Pleasure, Sarah.